Hi, it's Stephanie. Welcome to Ageless. I'm so glad you're here. You'll get to meet a friend of mine who will share her story. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Hello, everybody. I have the distinct pleasure of having a good friend of mine in the studio. She is a world traveler and she's the queen of pickleball.
I wouldn't go quite that far.
But I'm so happy to have Sandy here. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here.
Tell me about pickleball, please.
Pickleball is a great athletic sport that I didn't think I would like. I thought it was silly, and it is very addictive and very fun, and all ages and abilities are able to play it.
That is a fast-playing game, though.
It's not as fast as playing tennis when you're watching it, when they're doubles and stuff. But playing doubles, it's easy. It's a little bit of ping pong, a little bit of badminton, a little bit of tennis, all mixed into just a fun, laughing time.
Well, I have to be honest. I have played it once, and I said that was the end.
Well, our rule is never run backwards, and
that is the reason.
Let the ball go. Never run backwards. That's where injuries happen.
Oh, my goodness.
Scoring and serving are the two hardest things. Other than that, it's just a fun game.
Mm-hmm.
Get you outdoor in the sunshine.
Well, I love it. Well, we're going to jump into our conversation, and I, again, appreciate you coming to share your life. Women really need to be encouraged, and you are a great encourager. If you'd like to start with telling us a little bit about how you grew up, and that would be cool.
No big exciting childhood. I was raised in a middle-class family. Nothing exciting except that my dad was a company man his whole life. He worked for Wonder Bread and Hostess Cakes, and when he promoted, we moved. People asked if I was in the military because we lived all over the United States.
So is that where you got your traveling experiences from? That's why you like to travel so much?
I don't know. It's not a desire to travel, but a realizing that every place has its weaknesses or the things you don't like about it, but also has things that someplace else doesn't have.
Mm-hmm.
So it gave me a vision of seeing a new place with new eyes of what do I like about this place? Like when we were in Colorado, they had nice dry snow. You had seasons, but the sun still shined. So things like that.
That's cool. As you were growing up, there, I'm sure, were women in your life that made an impact. And so I would like to ask you to share some of those women. And I want to start with your mom.
My mom, I always say, was a character. She was full of life. She had a servant heart. She had a great sense of humor. When she was a child, I found out later in life, her father didn't go to church much, but his side of the family went to Baptist church. Her mom had gone to Pentecostal church. And when growing up, neither of them were going to church. And she started going to church on her own. So when our church had a discussion of do teenagers have a right to vote at a church meeting, she was a strong advocate from her history that they have a right. If they are coming to church, if they've accepted Christ as their Lord, they should be able to vote. And she won over a lot of the congregation with her passion for that.
Wow.
But she always went to church. My dad was an Easter and Christmas kind of attender, but my mom always kept us in church and going to church and just loving it. She was also a woman that worked part of my childhood. She was a dietitian. She worked in a hospital. She taught when we lived in Memphis. She was also adaptable when we moved, find places to do. And she was a tennis player in high school. So maybe that's where my love for pickleball comes from. But the best word to describe it is mom was a hoot, especially in her older years. The Lord was gracious when I came back from being a missionary to get to live with her 6 years before she passed away. And even then, she kind of went on her terms. She was, after my dad had passed, she was a strong-willed woman. She yielded to him when he was around, but when it was just down to her, she became a very strong and lovely person, though. Everyone loved my mom.
How would you say that influence of your mom's life shaped your life?
I'm finding more and more how much I am like her. Hopefully I don't take some things to an extreme. I did not pick up her green thumb, though. her gardening. I did not. She loved her garden,
Mhm.
and she was really good at it. But I find that her love for the Lord, her thankful and grateful heart. In fact, she corrected the pastor once when he was saying, so you go to the Lord with your supplications and stuff, and left out the word with thanksgiving. And she said, you missed a word, with thanksgiving. And
Was
she
this
never
in
let her
service?
forget it. It was in a Bible study. But he used her from the pulpit quite often
Okay.
about how she had corrected him. But she has influenced in me and my, I think, waste not, want not. She was a child in the Depression, and you fix it, you reuse it, you recycle it. She was very conscientious about that. And so I think that has rubbed off on me also. I'm very much into recycling and reusing things.
There's nothing wrong with that. And by the way, older things as we recycle are built much better than the newer things.
They are, but they are sometimes harder to find a home for.
This is true. This is true. Are there any other women that you have been influenced by and maybe taking a piece of what they shared with you to put it into your own life?
I think, again, moving around a lot, my biggest influence would have been family. Even though we moved around, every Christmas we went back to my dad's parents' house for Christmas and Christmas Eve. And then on Christmas Day, we drove 2 hours to my mom's family. They lived in Oklahoma. So I always spent Christmas in Oklahoma, which is just a treasured memory of that. And so grandparents are different. You have different memories, but you realize how much they impact you over. Now, again, my grandmother on my dad's side, I never had learned her cooking abilities. We raved about her rolls at Christmas. And my other grandmother was a good cook too. They influenced me. But through the years, when you move around a lot, you do lean on your family. Your mother, I have no sisters, and I have never had a long-term friend of you raised up with them. But in high school, I had a wonderful lady who helped teach the youth that I remember learning a lot of things about her, thinking she was so wise. And because you see someone who's older when you're younger, the thought of them running off but shotgun to get married because the dad didn't want them to get married yet, so they ran off and eloped, and you're like, no way, you're this so nice and respectable person.
Yes.
Now that you're older, you realize just sometimes you have misconceptions about people that you think that they're one way, and if you get to know their past, they're a lot like you, and they're a lot like having to make different decisions at different times, and it's where you are at the present isn't how you were in the past or where you're going to be in the future.
Yes.
And I think that that's a great thing to learn. I also had a dear high school friend who helped me appreciate the value of family. She came from a broken family, and sometimes we looked at our parents' burden of rules and regulations as confining. And she didn't have those. And I got from her perspective how she regretted she didn't have a curfew. She felt her mom didn't care about her because she didn't want to put these guardrails in her life. And in that, it helped me to appreciate the guardrails and the friendship. She was Mandy and I was Sandy, so we were like sisters all along. And we have kept touch over the years. Every place I've moved, usually there's one person that has impacted my life, but it takes time to make a friend. And that isn't my strength, but in hindsight, I can appreciate all the different facets of the friends I have. But usually a friend that I come into encourages me, and I like them to challenge me, especially in my faith, to hold me accountable that my actions match what I say and that my attitude matches how the Lord taught us to do. When I lived in the city of California, the state of Missouri, California, Missouri, I had a dear friend and that challenged me in studying and walking out our faith. And then I had other friends that happened chance of knowing that God can bring you a friend at any time and anywhere. And when I lived in Georgia in Loganville, met a friend in a dance class at the gym. And we loved to laugh and get together and dance, and that developed into going out and having a deeper friendship. And when I was in Africa, there was a point where I felt extremely, extremely alone. It was a very down time. And I have great missionary friends. At this point, it was the lowest point. And a missionary friend said there was a lady in our water aerobics class, and she had fallen and was in the hospital, and she wanted to go visit. Would I come with her to visit?
Mm-hmm.
And we went. Now, this was an older lady who had fallen and hurt herself. And I visited her and we clicked. It was hysterical. We were totally different cultures. Her faith, she didn't walk with the Lord. She was Afrikaans. I was American.
Mm-hmm.
She was older than I was by several years, but within months, we made such a friendship that we were almost going to move in with each other.
Oh.
But the Lord had other plans and took her home to be with him because she came to know the Lord before she passed away. But in that moment, God taught me, I've got your back. I can bring a friend when you feel the loneliest. Just ask me, and I can bring someone you never imagined to totally enrich your life. And her name is Rita. And I have a favorite picture of us just laughing hysterically.
I'm looking at you right now, and every person that you've mentioned, it's like your eyes get brighter and brighter and brighter, and the smile. People do make a difference in our life.
Oh, absolutely. And they don't have to be long term. For the longest time, I mourn that I don't have these people that have lived here all their life and have these friends that they've had forever and have this long history about. And most of mine, if I'm not related to them, I don't have the long history with. But learning to appreciate the time you have with who you have, it doesn't have to be for long term. It can be for a season, for a purpose, either for you pouring into them or them pouring into you, or challenging you or growing you, and just realize what a beautiful flower each one of them are. And they don't all have to be the same. The most beautiful flower gardens are ones that have a range of different flowers and smells and just beauty to them.
So we are a garden.
We are a garden.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So we're going to segue to your travels to Africa. What brought you there? How did you pour Sandy into those women? And then on the flip side, what did you take away from them and that you're still like growing in your own life?
This is complicated. Going to Africa, I had become divorced in 2005. And that was an interesting journey with God. And that in my case, and I'm not saying that for any other person in any other situation, it's my situation and what God spoken to me, was at that time I was released from my legal marriage, but not my covenant marriage. And I was at peace with that. And that's just where I stood. I took a Healing Streams course at the church I was going to, which was fantastic in helping me process my walk with God and learning to listen and expecting God to speak to me. I'd had a couple of times in my life where I felt God speak to me when I was a young lady and single and lived in California. Helicopters were going around looking for somebody, and my mind was going wild with stories. I had a night where I looked at the window and had this mass murder, thoughts going through my head, and realized I need to get grips with this, and went to the Lord and said, Lord, I've got to trust you. Either you're going to protect me from something or you're going to go through it with me. And I drew a line in the sand that I can look back on now that knew that was a line in the sand with the enemy. Fear never gripped me. It's not to say I was never afraid, but fear of something new or something happening, that was a solid time with God that we drew that protection around me. So after Healing Streams, I started listening to God, and he moved me in different ministries and different things. And somebody came to our church. I take back, the pastor came back one time and had visited an orphanage in India and talked about it. And I worked for the Department of Children's Services at the time. And God stirred in me, you can work with children outside of the United States. Okay, God. And about 6 months later, he came from visiting this ministry in Africa. And God spoke to me, and it's printed as a conversation. God said, I want you to go to Africa. Okay, traveling. I had gone to Honduras, but other than that, I moved around the United States, gone down to Tijuana. So I'd been in 2 other countries and made a short-term mission trip to Honduras, but I wasn't a big traveler at the time. And I thought, that's nice. Mission trip, that sounds really interesting. I can handle that. And God said, no, I want you to go and stay. Mission trip sounds really good, God. Maybe then we can talk about, because Africa was nowhere on my radar. Then God said, no, if I say it's okay to go, you don't have to visit first. And I'm sure my pastor looked at me when I told him this whole story. Okay, well, I will hook you up with the organization. It was a small Christian humanitarian organization called Children's Cup. He gave me the application. We videoed a testimony. We did all that stuff, but he never sent the pastor referral. And for some reason, I don't know why, I was so sure this is what God said, and I have no clue how he's going to work it out, but I trust him work it out. I'm not that way in my regular life. I like a plan. I like to know where things are going, but for some reason, I was okay. If you're going to work it out, God, you work it out. I'm okay if I don't go, You just work it out. And 6 months later, the couple who had started the organization are going to be in town for our anniversary. You want to have lunch with them. And one of the questions that the gentleman asked my pastor is, if she's such hot stuff, why are you so willing to get rid of her?
Oh.
And my pastor said, well, he says, because I've been blowing her off for 6 months and she's never wavered that she's supposed to go. And heck, if I'm going to stand in God's way. And within a year, he worked it out. And logistically, even looking back, I have no idea how he came up with the sponsorship. I was raised Baptist. You don't have to raise funding. Other organizations don't work that way. You have to raise funding and support. And it's really hard to raise funding when someone's saying, I feel called to Africa. Never been there. Not quite sure what I'm going to do. But God worked it out. I wasn't a nurse, I wasn't a teacher, I wasn't an evangelist, and wasn't any of those things you think a missionary is. I was an office person. The organization was just getting where they needed to organize an office. You can't have everybody out in the field and expect an organization to run. If you think of World Vision, where you see a picture of a child and you sponsor them, I take the pictures of the children, I keep the letters up. That was my work. We had sites that are called care points where the community bought in, that they had women from the community that would cook for the children. We would provide the supplies to have meals for orphaned and vulnerable children. And when they had a consistent group of 100 or more, we would come in and build a structure and provide teachers in the beginning for a preschool type thing. We would have Bible clubs and medical help that would come in the community. I oversaw the writing of letters, getting letters to children. It's a little more complicated than that. I love the Bomage. That's what women were called.
The what?
Bomage. Mage is like Mrs. or ma'am or mom. It really stands for mama. But you call everybody. So I call you Mama Stephanie. So Mage Stephanie.
I like that.
And so Bomage is women. The Bomage were the cooks, and those big, you see those big cauldron kettles on a fire, hold lots of rice, and the country mainly ate what's pop, which is cornmeal that's very filling for empty stomachs, not very nutritious. Eventually, before we left, we worked with Feed My Starving Children and brought in the nutritious rice packets that you're still pouring a whole bunch of them into a big thing. And when teams came, we would have chicken. We had chicken to it. But we worked with locals in the area to work with the children, and English was the education language.
I see.
So I had a little bit easier time in that they needed to practice their English a lot. And I learned enough Siswati is the language of, I was in Swaziland, Africa for 7.5 years, and learned enough to greet and pay homage to the language. But not being raised with a foreign language, it's hard to translate. I laughed. I said, you can teach an old dog new tricks, but heck, if you can get that dog to meow. But it's a wonderful, loving culture, and had some great relationship with some wonderful ladies. And I have a gentleman who's a son who I still keep in touch with in WhatsApp, and he's now a father.
Very nice.
And has a young child, and my heart is partially there.
You mentioned Rita, right? Okay. Were there any other women, and how did you influence them? Because the cultures were different, how did you sense a connection with these women?
I will say there's also missionary women that come from just out of college, but also so gifted. And some taught me patience. Some taught me to live in the moment. Some taught me you can overcome anything. So strong. Women would carry 20 liters of water on their head. That's a lot. That's a big container. I once laughed because I couldn't even put the bag of apples and try to get it to stay on my, head or oranges. Children can play with anything. Children teach you. if you want to do, I don't know if you remember Cats in the Cradle type of games where you have a string and you put a rope over, you have like a pattern you go through.
Yes, I do.
You never see that anymore. But back in the day, they had the kinds on the hands that you did with friends. But they also have one elastic that would go around ankles. Well, we had girls, teenage girls, who would find pieces of string and tie them together till they could get one a loop. And they would play that day in and day out in the afternoons and stuff. Or kids that would take plastic bags that were given out in the shop, but there weren't really trash bins, so they blew around. But if you keep rolling them on top of each other, you can make a soccer ball. You just keep one on top of another, like rolling a ball of string or a rubber band ball. It's just all these plastic bags rolled together, and they would play ball or take wire and make a wire car with a very long, tall steering wheel so you could stand up and turn the wheels of the car on a thing. That was some of the toys that they brought. But like the culture, kids grow up fast. There was a culture that was the highest HIV rate in per capita. It was a small country, but HIV had very few middle-aged women. Children were raised by their grandparents, a lot of them. A lot of girls lived through just exposed to a lot of things and feeling that they are not of worth. So to see children laugh and play and even have dreams of being something. Some still want to be mothers, and there's nothing wrong with being a mother. But to start dreaming about the future period, but being a doctor or a teacher or a nurse, those are some of the occupations. It was really good and inviting to see the light come on in some children's eyes. I had missionaries that taught me, well, and Bomage. It's the worship that you don't need to understand the language to worship the same God. And they would always get so excited. Relationships is what it built in Africa. When they saw you, and I'll probably bust your mic, if I showed up there, they would all be screaming like that. And just, you knew that they loved and were excited to see you.
So is that what that is? I mean, you see movies, you've heard that before. Is that just a loving call or
it's usually an excited call. So we do that in worship a lot. I don't think I could do that in worship here.
Well, I mean, it would be unique.
Without being escorted out of the service. So that was their enjoyment, excitement, and they loved to share that, to dance and that excitement in seeing somebody. That was one thing that they poured into me. And that it is more than the to-do list. It's not about even doing things well. We do strive to do things well, but things don't have to be perfect. Things don't have to be done on time. Things don't have to be just so. It's about relationals. It's about the people you're doing with it. Don't get so distracted in what you have to do. In greeting, they say sawubona, which is I see you. Then you say yes, which is yebo. And then I would say, how are you? And then you would say fine. And in my American way, when I come into the office or come into the thing, well, okay, we need to do this and we got to get this. They're going to be here and that. And they say, hello, Mage. Stop and see me first. Then we can talk about whatever needs to get done. But you need to stop and have the relationship first. So that is one of the powerful things that they taught me.
Thinking about that and thinking about us here in America, how many women do you believe really want that, but have the facade that it's, it doesn't really matter, but inside their heart is breaking? What would you say to them?
I think there's so many out there and they think that it's okay. I'm okay. I don't need anybody to see me. I just need to be where I am. I'm okay. But when you stop and see somebody, and when they really see that somebody sees them, they realize how much they need to be seen. You need to have a chance to laugh with someone. You can watch a show and laugh, but it is so much more fun when you're sitting with somebody and you laugh at something. Not laugh at someone, but laugh at something that just you're sharing something there. Or cry. I mean, it's crying alone stinks. But being able to hold someone's hand and being allowed just to cry says so much without even any words. And it's been so interesting because right now in my move to a new city again, in these last couple of years. He's brought me eclectic people through very different avenues just to say, see how many people need to be seen and what value they have. I have close friends from different races, different backgrounds, different thinking of their different worth, that I don't have anything to offer. And it's been exciting to have them change me and me pour into them. Just, you are great. I love having you as a friend. I love laughing and sharing those things. I love sharing how you've decorated a place or how you've done something else, achievement, or that you poured into families' lives that really needed your help and you stood up even when some of the family that should have stood up didn't stand up. Great job. Well done. I think so many people don't get that well done just for being you.
You're back now several years here in the U.S. And as you said, you're in ministry doing a lot of different things. What are some of the things that you're doing and how is that impacting the women there? And I also know you're doing something with young people. So you are ministering in a sense to the moms. If you want to break off and talk about some of those things, that would be great.
One of the funny things, how God connects the strangest things, is I work with an after-school program with West Georgia. They have an after-school program, and I have a group of ladies from my church that we go and we do Bible study. And one of the ladies felt called to try to have she named it Coffee and Conversation, to try to get some of the mothers involved. She tried it a couple of times. We only got a couple of the ladies, and they were older ladies, felt it didn't work out. And then she had a family emergency that it kind of broke off. But one of the ladies I connected with, and is one of my friends who lives at the apartments there. This is God's just touching the dots. So we started out with the Bible study that was going to reach to moms, didn't reach to moms, reached to somebody else who I thought was old enough to go to the senior life, wanted to connect her with that. She wasn't old enough, but she belonged to a group called Circles. Now, Circles is a organization that works with those in poverty to strengthen their community. I have fallen in love with the group. I go every Thursday night, but some of the things that they've taught me, from teenagers to those in upper ages, but the evening is intentional. They have a note that say, step up or step back. If you're someone like me who can easily talk, you might need to step back and keep quiet a little bit.
Okay.
And if you're that quiet person, maybe you need to step up and go ahead and have a voice. So it's a great encouragement in that area. There will be ouch, oops, and ohs. Be mindful of them. Ouch says we are living community. We are here in community. We are all different. Somebody's going to get hurt. Their feelings are going to be hurt. And so we want you just to own it and say, ouch, that hurt my feelings, or that hurt me in some way or another. Go ahead and speak up. And the person that hurt you needs to say, oops, I acknowledge I did something that brought offense or that hurt you in some way. I am sorry. And I take ownership of that. And they said, and in ideal situations, we might get an O, and you might see the other person's perspective. And each night it starts with, and if every meeting could do this, they go around the circle and you have to say something new and good in your life. You don't realize how hard that is to just take a moment and look at your past week and have to acknowledge, well, this is new and good. Now, true, some people are in a place, I got here. It was a rough day and I didn't think I'd make it. I got here. That's my new and good, and that's okay. And sometimes you can just applaud someone, hit a goal or an aspiration, and just have that group say, good job. Just that affirmation feels so good. Or it might be, thank you for sharing tonight. What you said really meant to me. But it goes around, so you give one and then you get it. So I would affirm you, but the person on my other side would affirm me, and it'd go around that way. And everyone leaves with that something nice said about them. And
so
stuff.
they've been touched.
They've been touched. I go back just for those things. I love going back just to get that. And then I work with Safe Families, which is just saying, I want to help. I'm at a place I don't have to work. I'm at a wonderful place that I can do. I can have that flexible. I'm a grandmother that doesn't have kids living next door. So I have a long-term relationship with a family, and I'm kind of their grandma. Once a month, I give respite care to an aunt that's caring for her nieces and get to take them to church and stuff. Took the aunt out for breakfast to hear her goals and aspiration and where she's at. And it was wonderful. And she's not comfortable in the church because of previous offenses. And we talked, and that's good. But she is realizing she needs that fellowship. And I said the person all the way back to the low-income housing, a neighbor of hers, he asked her if she'd asked me to start a Bible study.
Oh, wow.
So this summer, I'm probably going to start a Bible study. And my Safe Family aunt said, well, if you start a Bible study, I'll be there. So
you've planted a seed.
Planted seeds, and just to see God's planted and touched the strangest dots that keep connecting back to each other. And it's just a beautiful thing. And
but it's because you took a risk. You took a risk to invest in somebody else's life. And sometimes it's hard to do because you don't know what's going to happen.
And it's okay to love people in their mess and to be uncomfortable, not understand, and to ask questions. You're not there to solve anybody's problems. Sometimes you can encourage or help them process something, but you're to enjoy who they are, because everyone is someone that's beautiful. It might not have blossomed yet. They might not feel that they're beautiful or special.
It's going back to the phrase, I can't remember it now, Sabona. Sabona, I see you.
I see you.
Because we're so busy. We just don't look at each other. We don't touch. We don't engage. We're just in different little sections.
COVID, the touching, the hugging, the shaking hands. And that is back to that very first encounter with God of drawing the line of not being afraid. Don't be afraid of failing. The failing is just, okay, I need to maybe do it differently or better or realize this. I never realized that was offensive or this or that. I'm sorry I messed this up, but it helps me be better the next time. And just to learn, discuss, ask questions. My grand blessing, he likes to say, I have a question. And it's okay to have questions and not be offended if someone asks you a question.
Right.
Or saying, I don't feel comfortable answering that, then that's okay. Age doesn't matter, but if someone asks your age, you can say, I'm not comfortable with that. Or you can proudly give whatever age you are, young or old.
Exactly.
And the older you get, the younger it sounds.
I like that. Okay, I love that.
When you're 10, 50 seems like ancient.
And when you're 10, you can't wait to get older.
Oh, yeah. That eventually stopped.
That's so funny. It's so funny.
But there is blessing wherever you are, whatever age you are, where, whatever. There are even blessings in the sad times or the frustrating times. You can't always see it at the time, but you can look back and see the miracle that it was. I remember when my mom passed. Yes, it's a sad time, but she was able to go out on her terms. And it was in God's timing. And in the moment, it was so hard, but in the hindsight, I just have peace. It was okay. And I'm okay. And yes, sometimes it'd be nice to call her, but it's okay to learn that I don't have her to call.
Because you have her in you.
I have her in me, a little bit too much at times, but I'll let her know that.
Got a couple of questions. Is it possible for women to have friendships despite the age? I mean, what do you see the benefit? How would that be beneficial to someone if they had someone who was not in their quote age bracket connect with them?
One, the Bible encourages us to mentor, to pour in, like the older lady when I was a teenager who poured into me in the youth group, who taught me good boundaries about relating to boys and stuff. And the older women that can teach you older than you. I'm getting up to that age. There's getting fewer and fewer that older than me, but there still are that teach you life lessons that what's going to matter in the end. Don't get so consumed by the little things that you don't enjoy where you're at.
How would you define the word ageless?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know how does Merriam Dictionary define it.
No, how does Sandy define it?
I honestly, I don't look at age.
Okay.
One, if I tried to guess somebody's age, I'd probably be way off in the first place. As I was with the person I tried to sign up for the senior center and she wasn't of age yet. I think it's important to see a person, and that shouldn't be defined by anything, their age, their accent, their culture, their economic level. Down deep, we're just people. We are women that need to be loved, need to be seen, need to have value, need to know that we have something to contribute. And it doesn't matter whether you are young or old or ancient, we all still need to laugh. We all still need a hug. We all still need to dream and listen to God and see what direction he has. If he's taught me anything, Ephesians 3:20, glory be to God, by his power within us, he will do exceedingly, abundantly, way beyond, as Priscilla Shirer says, beyond our beyond that we can imagine. And the only thing age has is the advantage of looking back and seeing all the things that he's done. And realize if you'd asked me at this age, I never would have seen where I am at this age. Sure. But other than that, whether you're at that age or this age, you don't know what's going to be at that future time. That is ageless. It doesn't, all of us, if we just seek him, are going places we never imagined we would be.
That is so true. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for listening.
Yeah, that was good. Here's a fun question for you. If you were a spice, which one would you be? And how would you pour that spice into the life of the women around you to encourage them, inspire them, or say, yes, I'm here, I see you?
Oh, that is an interesting question for the non-cook. But the first thing that came to mind is cinnamon. And let me tell you why. Okay. I take cinnamon on my oatmeal. This came from my mom to help with memory, because cinnamon's supposed to help with memory. I would put cinnamon to say remember, because I think remembering where you've been, recognizing where you are so that you can remember it down the road and use it. You know, so much today we go through the motions without recognizing it. I think of when we're driving somewhere and all of a sudden that car automatically, because you're always going one direction to church or to work, and your car automatically goes that way. Yeah, I'm going there, but I went that way. I wasn't recognizing, I wasn't remembering where I am. I was not in the moment. So that's what just on the spur of the moment came to mind is cinnamon. And I would teach you just to remember, smell the rose, remember the moment today. We're not guaranteed it tomorrow. Let's use today to be all we can be and enjoy, not get overwhelmed by it. Just enjoy. And maybe that does mean stop being overwhelmed and remember your yesterday. And you don't have to necessarily tackle everything today. It can wait till tomorrow, and you can take a deep breath and remember that, yeah, if I don't take care of myself, I'm not going to have the energy to go on. So, okay, let me remember that. And remember that I have something to give too. Those down moments that everything seems dark and bleak, remember that I have something to give somebody else that maybe they can help their dark and bleak. And when we get out of ourselves too, remember that when we get out of ourselves, it brings healing to our own bodies.
That's good. That's really good. Well, thank you so much for the privilege you gave to me. This was really, really good. And just looking at you and the expressions on your face really made such an impact in my life. And it tells me that you have been a flower in so many people's garden of life. You have brought such fragrance and joy, and you've been an encourager, and you've encouraged me just listening. Some of the things, of course, I did not know. You know, what you did in Africa and the things that you learned just trickle into what you're doing now. So you're right. All that we do makes an impact. All that we are makes an impact. And if we just take the time to invest in other people, what a powerful impact it would make in just the lives of those around us, especially the women in our lives.
If everybody listening just would think of one person they could reach out to and just say encouraging, or I see you, and it could be a total stranger at the grocery store, somebody, that smile makes a difference to somebody. Or I always walk out of a store, have a blessed day, even if it's the teller that aggravated the daylights out of me, but because down the road, that doesn't matter. But seeing somebody matters, saying hello, reach out, call somebody by name, text them an encouraging message, give them a hug. I'm not a hugger by nature, wasn't raised that way, but gosh, I love a hug. And I love being reminded to hug. So don't be afraid. Reach out and touch someone.
Thank you for your willingness to do this, Sandy. This has been wonderful.
Been fun.
I love you, and I thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Hey, my friend. Thanks for joining me today on Ageless and for being an amazing part of this journey. Don't forget, you have been fearfully and wonderfully made. Go out today and live this life vibrantly. Until next time, bye for now.